Bill Burr is among the most controversial comedians from this generation, and while most people find him funny, his tendency to be unfiltered can be pretty irritating. This is why the 2021 Grammys turned out to be the most difficult challenge for the Mandalorian actor, as he consciously made a very inappropriate joke, and when it went viral, he almost got himself canceled. So, let's get into what everybody thought of his controversial speech. First off, Twitter went crazy over it. We all know how this platform is right at the center of cancel culture. One misstep and you could lose your entire career. Well, that's exactly what Burr was risking when parts of his speech got posted on Twitter, and things just spread like wildfire. He mispronounced the Grammy winner Natalia Lafourcade's name, admitting that he doesn't know how to pronounce the Latino name. But it wasn't just that. He expressed how he had no idea why he was up on the stage as a cis white man, doing this Latino stuff. And though he probably meant it in a lighthearted way, many people felt it had deeper implications. As we've all seen happen countless times, #CancelBillBurr started trending as soon as people saw it, and many people even accused him of being racist. It was also a pretty common sentiment among people to blame him for ruining the winner's announcement entirely because of how he butchered her name, ruining an important moment in her life. People went as far as to call him, as well as his wife, racist, considering how they are an interracial couple. Things really began to hit the fan when nobody put a stop to it, and Bill had started a storm that wasn't going to die down anytime soon. On the other hand, we should also mention the tiny number of Twitter users who found his joke funny, calling him the GOAT for it. Moving on, Joe Rogan remained sort of neutral about it. Being one of the greatest names in the media, he has quite a lot to say when it comes to public opinion, since he hosts a podcast show that has one of the biggest fan bases ever. People expect him to talk about things that are especially trending at the moment.
It's that lack of self-worth, this identifying yourself as a complete and total failure. It's very difficult.
But it's important to understand that his friendship with Bill goes a long way back, and it's obvious because they're both comedians who have worked in the entertainment sector for a while now. Not to mention, they were bound to become close friends because of how both of them have a knack for saying controversial things. Since the two are already used to getting people angry, Rogan obviously wasn't surprised about the situation. They sat together on the podcast after the incident, but they didn't feel the need to directly mention it. Instead, they talked about how the cancel culture seems to be getting out of hand, because deep down, they both felt that he was being canceled for nothing. Honestly, it could just be an instance of a friend looking out for another. In today's age, it's difficult to tell what a person truly believes in, but either way, no backlash for Burr from this side. Following up, Ben Shapiro passionately supported him. Well, we know none of you are surprised at the fact that he stood up for someone who was being canceled for being offensive, even though he's a political analyst and very far from the comedian's profession. It's hard to even comprehend that he would watch the kind of comedy Bill does, but he still defended him the very next morning on his show. The points he usually makes revolve around making a big deal out of small, harmless things, but he just likes to impose his perspective on everybody else. That is exactly what he tried to do when he attempted to drag Cardi B on her super hit song WAP, even if it failed miserably and he got branded as sexist for his horrendous words. No one really takes the man seriously, but it was worth noting that he wasted no time jumping into this scandal as well. It was right up his alley. Finally, a lot of other people also had his back. Now, whatever you feel as an audience to this scandal is valid, but most of the comedians idolized him for what he did. It may be hard to believe, but they wasted no time jumping onto the bandwagon and supporting him, implying that he did nothing wrong. A huge reason behind this could be that many other comedians have also been in his shoes, coming under fire for words that they didn't mean as offensive. Andrew Schulz is one of them, having faced tons of criticism for his words in the past. Keeping his experience in mind, he passionately defended Bill alongside his friend Akash on their podcast. They looked through the details of the entire incident and what the people had to say, and he still thought the comedian had done nothing wrong. In the end, he admitted that he found it hard to think of anything Burr said as offensive, because he had idolized the man since he was a little kid. There sure is a bias, which they initially tried to hide, but their opinions on the matter were pretty strong. Now, let's talk about the top 3 times Bill has angered his fans. To start, his scandalous SNL monologue. This happened back in 2020, and unsurprisingly, it was actually pretty relevant to the Grammys incident that happened just a year after that. His opening monologue was all about cancel culture, and the comedian went on for 7 whole minutes talking about how they've canceled so many people that there are none left to cancel now. In fact, according to him, people are so desperate that they're going after the dead now, using the example of John Wayne Wayne Gacy and how they're canceling somebody who was a serial killer 40 years ago. He didn't hold back from moving on to bashing white women for ruining the woke movement because of how it was meant to be for the people of color who don't get their rightful opportunities. The comedian noted that all of that changed in 8 seconds and followed this point up with more conservative perspectives, as he mentioned how a month is too long to celebrate anything when referring to Pride Month. He made things even worse for himself when he went on to say that since the people who belong to the LGBTQ were never enslaved like black people were, they don't deserve to have a whole month to themselves.
A revenge
You
fantasy
haven't
for
noticed that in your relationship? Like, I've noticed being married, we're always working on me.
He compared it to how black people only get 28 days in the extreme cold of February, implying that the months should be switched. Obviously, people were outrageously angry at his jokes, and almost nobody found that stuff funny, because comparing sufferings should never be a joke in the first place. Coming up, he didn't even leave Michelle Obama alone. He took a dig at her in his Netflix special, Paper Tiger, referring to her book tour for Becoming. He pointed out how she was going on an arena tour, and it looked to him as though she was acting too important within herself. He demeaned her by saying that being the first lady isn't really a job. It just entails that you stand there, smiling and waving. He compared her to her husband, Obama, who'd been elected and stayed in office throughout his term, but looked a lot older when he left office. On the other hand, his wife looked as though she had become younger, and in the 8 years that the president was in office, he implied that she was probably chilling around, free of any stress. Later on, the comedian defended his words when he appeared on The Last Laugh, mentioning that it was just a joke. He held nothing against the two, and even though he knew that this joke had the potential to turn into a scandal, he made it anyway, because what was the worst that could have happened? He also pointed out that most people who listened to him that night were aware of the fact that they came to a comedy club to listen to some jokes, which is why none of them would take his words seriously. Regardless, he had people fuming once again, especially the ones who know the ex-president and his wife's history well. And lastly, he had to dig at male feminists. In this same comedy special, the comedian brought up this topic to express how incomprehensible it was for him. He simply couldn't wrap his head around men going around telling others that they were male feminists. His point was that if you haven't done something wrong, why would you feel the need to put that label on yourself so obsessively? Still, people were entirely disappointed in how badly Bill missed the point, and how whatever he said was super dumb to start with. After all, a joke doesn't necessarily have to hurt a marginalized group to be funny, but Burr probably finds that hard to understand too. And with that, that's a wrap, folks.
Everything I'm saying totally makes sense to me.
Right.
Are you guys a fan of Bill Burr's scandalous humor? Tell us in the comments below. And as always, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more updates about your favorite stars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya in the next one.